What is up, YouTube? Third Impact here, and I have now seen the Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 rebuild film Shin Evangelion two times, and I am ready to talk about it here on YouTube. So I've seen a lot of people putting out spoilers online, a lot of people making videos giving their thoughts, summarizing some events of the film, and you know what? I thought I was just going to jump in and I'm going to try to do the same thing. A way that I'm going to try to differentiate this is that I'm straight up just going to start at the beginning of the film and describe every single thing that I can recall happening in order with as much visual detail as I can possibly remember. I don't know how long this is going to take. I'm going to leave out a lot of stuff, obviously. And Japanese is not my native language, clearly. But I feel like I had a fairly good understanding of the film. I'm not going to talk about things and speculate on long scenes of dialogue or exposition because I don't want to put out the wrong information. But if I'm confident in something happening, I'm going to say, like, I think this happened. Or if I'm really not sure, I'll make that clear. I don't really want this to be a review. I still have to meditate on the film. I need to see it a few more times. I'm not 100% sure on my full thoughts from like a review point of view, but I did enjoy the film and I definitely came out of it positively. What I want to do here is just get as much information out there as I possibly can. So I'm just going to start at the beginning and I'm going to go in as much detail as I can. And sorry for everything I leave out, and sorry for major bits of dialogue or other things that you might be curious about. Please feel free to leave a comment down below. But I'm just going to start from the beginning. So first we have a quick review of Jo, Ha, and Q. I don't know if this is going to be in like an actual physical release, but in the theater version, they did a recap of the first three films, just like they did for the specials that they streamed online. Following this, we are immediately thrown into the first Avant, which we have all seen, their mission in Paris. The main purpose of this scene is to show the types of Evangelions, the new Mark units, the Mark 44A, 44B, and 4444C that Fuyutsuki and Gendo are creating, them retrieving new equipment from NERV, the European branch, and also establishing these new machines, these red and black machines that can be used to purify the land. So we have the Avant. You can watch this online. The Avant is immediately followed up by the opening credit sequence, which was also streamed online and I believe can be found online. The music's really great. It's Rei, not Rei, tentatively named Rei Ayanami, Rei Q, Asuka, Shikinami, and Shinji wandering through the wasteland, and Shinji is very dejected, obviously. After the credits sequence, we have a shot of Shinji down in the dumps looking depressed. Asuka comes up to him and checks on him. She's disappointed. A van approaches, picks them up. It is a familiar voice, and we soon find out that it is Toji Suzuhara. He takes them back to a village, which I believe is called Village 3 or Town 3. And it is a huge area of land, both this town and the surrounding area, that have been purified the same way that the European branch of NERV has been purified. And many people here are living here. We have animals, we have cats, we have dogs. And Toji Suzuhara is now married to Hikari Suzuhara, and they have a baby named Tsubame. And one of the first scenes we have is Rei wandering around town. She is asking many questions about the world she's learning. She's like, what's this? It's a dog, she's told. What's this? It's it's a strange looking dog. It's a cat. Oh, what's this to a baby? It's a very small human. Oh, that's a baby. Being taught mainly by Hikari Suzuhara, who seems to understand and has no problem and treats Rei very kindly and teaches her many things. Also phrases like what is, good morning, good night, goodbye, thank you, all of these things which become relevant later on in the film. While they're that evening, they're kind of having a little, not like welcome party, but like a kind of welcome meal. An older gentleman shows up. I'm not sure if it's Toji's father. His name is Bunzaimon Horaki. So I'm not exactly sure his relation, but he has some alcohol and they're kind of drinking and partying. And Kensuke actually shows up, and he is quite a bit older now. He's sort of as while Toji is a doctor, he's sort of like a handyman. He's still a survival otaku of sorts, but he seems to be quite like a little engineer and fixing things up. And Shinji is still very dejected. He's not responsive. He's not talking to anybody. He's still upset from the events of the last film. And Bunzaimon gets angry with him, but Hikari comes in and tells him, try to understand. Don't be rude. And following this, they are taken to Shinji is taken to Kensuke's makeshift sort of build it yourself sort of house. And when Shinji enters, Rei is there drinking kind of purified water from I don't know the exact term for it. It's like a Japanese sort of ladle sort of thing that you would use at like a shrine. And she's naked. And Shinji sees her. She is not bothered by the fact that she's naked. And Shinji sees that she's wearing a DSS choker around her neck and pukes on the ground. And Kensuke wipes it up. Kensuke appears, throws a towel on Asuka, isn't fazed by the fact that she's naked. And Asuka refers to him as Ken. So they have a very familiar sort of relationship. And while Asuka has, generally been working at Wille, it might be that she lives with Kensuke. Maybe they have some sort of relationship. I think that would be what you might gather from that, or what is implied by that. But it's not really, it's somewhat left open to interpretation. But you would definitely think that there is something between them. But they have a very joking sort of relationship. There isn't very much in the way of romance or anything like that shown. So it's interesting. And Asuka's obsessed with playing this handheld video game. It looks like a matching sort of Tetris style game. She's constantly playing it, and she spends the first maybe 20-30 minutes of the film just in her underwear with like a coat over her. Interesting choice there. And Rei continues to learn about the world of Village 3 and the world as a whole. And we also find out about a new organization, not really a new organization, but they work with Wille, called Credit. And they work with like the supplies, and I guess lots of people around the village work for Credit, and Credit supports Wille. Rei works with 4 older women around the town. They teach her how to plant rice, and during these scenes, it's very melancholic and very nice. We have English track play at this point. That's like a very upbeat sort of folk song. And we just sort of see a montage of Rei learning about this world, and learning about living life, being human. She wants to find a name for herself. She finds a bookstore, and she remembers Shinji bringing her books. And a little girl gives her a book, a children's book that seems like it would be a real book. And I'm not sure what the book is, but it's an illustration of a small child chasing a hedgehog. So that brings forth memories of the hedgehog's dilemma, obviously. And we have a scene in the evening of Rey where she's reading her book. Then her plug suit sort of starts beeping, and it says something about it being low on energy. And I think it's implied that because she's outside of her tube, outside of Nerve headquarters for such a long time, her body's sort of starting to weaken and break down. Her eyes glow red and she goes limp, and her head hits the ground. And then we see what is implied to be what she is seeing through her eyes, which is looking sort of outside of a test tube where we see rainbow sort of angel sealing glyphs or deity sealing glyphs, like the ones that are around the DSS choker and I've seen in a few other places, and a giant Zele logo on the other side of the tube. We then have a scene, very interestingly animated, visceral sort of scene of Asuka attempting to feed Shinji because he hasn't been eating. She climbs on top of him, and it's very physical animation. It's very interesting shot of her shoving like a protein sort of energy bar ration food into his mouth, which he is coughs up and can't swallow. She then leaves him, and Shinji, more upset than ever, leaves Kensuke's house and walks down some train tracks. And he follows these train tracks until he reaches a sort of rocky sort of area that looks like a scene that you might have seen in what is the short called? Until I Come to You. I might have the name of that short wrong, but it's like a white sort of cemented area. And here we also see Pen, or what we can assume is Pen. It's a penguin. It does the shaking its head and wings animation that we're known seeing with Pen, but he's not wearing the backpack or anything like that. But I mean, when else would we see a penguin? And he now has a whole family of penguins, so that's great. Good for Pen. And Shinji stays here dejected. Rei visits Asuka at Kensuke's apartment and asks where Shinji is, and it goes to Shinji and attempts to give him the SDAT, which he rejects. Rei then leaves Shinji, and what happens here? Some more time passes. Eventually, I believe Rei revisits Shinji and tells him that in that same scene that I just described, she said that she likes Shinji. She cares about him and how she's learning, and she wants to have a name. And then we have a scene where Shinji breaks down when he's there by himself and eats food rations that Rei Q left for him. After this, it appears as though he returns to the town, and we have another song playing, like a folk sort of song, and another English song. There's 3 English songs that play in this film, and in this song, I mean, I believe that the song's name can be The Hand of Fate. If you hear the song, they say that quite a few times. Kensuke teaches him about fishing. So it seems to be the new job he takes up in the town is he returns to that spot with the Pen's family and he fishes. Kensuke also takes him on a little tour and shows him these those large black and red cylindrical objects that they use to purify Nerve Europe branch. They seem to have been developed, I believe, maybe by Ritsuko, and they are all set up all over the place, sort of creating a barrier and a purified area where this village and the surrounding land can be. And Kensuke is very interested in this technology. The Failures of Infinity they're sort of wandering around outside of the barrier, and they take him to a sort of test site with a bunch of scientists, and we see scientists turn around with Kaji's name, straight up Ryoji Kaji. And it turns out that it is Misato and Kaji's son, who I swear that he said that he was 12 years old. But I'm not exactly sure how that lines up with Third Impact happening and then there being 14 years in between. Because I think it's implied that Misato was pregnant during Ha even. And what we find out a little bit later on is Kaji actually sacrificed himself to stop Third Impact. But we have scenes with Ryoji Kaji talking with Kensuke and Shinji, and I wish that I understood some of this scene a little bit better in the dialogue being said, but I believe that this is where they start going over how Kaji wanted to save the life on the planet. His main goal, even though he was a spy, was to help protect the life on planet Earth. That was his main goal and why he sacrificed himself. And I believe Ryoji Kaji doesn't blame Shinji for what happened. Something along those lines happens in that dialogue, but don't quote me on that. I can't confirm for sure. After these scenes take place, Shinji's feeling much better, more confident in himself. He's sort of starting to learn again how to reintegrate with society. And Rei actually visits Shinji while he's fishing. And after a long exchange, she starts backing away from Shinji. And her black plug suit begins to turn white from the bottom up to the top. And once it reaches the top, she bids farewell to Shinji and explodes into LCL. And then Shinji runs over and grabs her falling white plug suit before it hits the ground. And there's a small cross of light near the neck area of Rei's white plug suit, which then dissipates into a sort of rainbow ripple that then fades out and disappears. And I forgot to mention, right before Rei meets him there, she leaves all of the... Oh, she's given a school uniform by Hikari. I guess her old school uniform, and Rei was wearing that around town, and the old ladies and Hikari were saying how cute she looks and stuff, but she leaves all of her clothes behind before meeting Shinji with a note that says, good morning, good night, thank you, goodbye to Hikari, which are some of the words that she was taught by her. So after this, Shinji has a new sort of resolve and goes... There's word from Wile that there will be this final mission. They have to stop Gendo and Fuyutsuki. So Shinji joins Asuka to go to Wile because he's now decided that he has to help them and put a stop to this. We're seeing a scene of Fuyutsuki with 4 they're referred to as the new Ayanami series. And I believe they are also referred to as Ayanami Series 6. And he seems to be disappointed or remarks on the fact that they either can't advance the series any further or the end result of what this new Ayanami series was isn't exactly what they intended. But they show 4 of these Rei naked Ayanami series like sitting or laying on the ground in various poses, and I'm not exactly sure why 4 exactly were shown. As I'll get into later, there is we know of Mark 9 from Q. There's also Mark 10, 11, and 12. So there are 4 of these Mark Evangelion units, and these advanced Ayanami series may be what are piloting them. That's never confirmed later on, but I am a bit it is a bit strange that there are exactly 4 shown, as well as 4 Mark units later on. There's also the Evangelion Mark 7, which I'll get into shortly. We don't see pilots or anything from them, so it's unclear whether it's dummy plug system advanced Rei series piloting them or something else entirely, or maybe it does get addressed and I missed it, or it's not addressed at all. After this scene with Fuyutsuki and Rei, we see the sort of cylindrical device. What's the giant device sort of thing that we see in Q? Oh no, somebody just started up a sort of weed whacker or something. I hope you guys can't hear that. Oh crap, this could ruin everything. Anyways, continuing on. It's the thing that appears in Q that has all the failures of infinity. It appears and bursts out of the ground during the climax during fourth impact. So it's there, standing upright, and there are 4 crosses with a rainbow halo in the middle and 1 fallen cross on its side with halo 2. So there's 5 of them. They go to Wile. What's her name? Toji's little sister, Sakura, is given a photo of Toji's and Hikari's family by Asuka, and she cries, and but out of happiness, I feel for their new family. And Mari meets Asuka. She's very happy with meeting Asuka. She's very touchy, and cuts Asuka's hair. Even though the curse of Eva is a thing and they don't age, it appears that their hair still does grow, so she cuts her hair. There's also a scene of Mari teasing Shinji, where she puts her hands over his eyes and says, "Guess who this is?" He says he doesn't know, and she said, "I'll give you a hint. I have glasses and large breasts." And then Shinji remembers the parachuting Mari from Ha. And this is actually the first time that they meet each other, which is quite interesting. From here, the final mission to stop Fuyutsuki and Gendo begins. And all of the Wile crew tie blue armbands onto their arms. They tie armbands onto each other's arms, and these represent those who have fallen in battle against Fuyutsuki and Gendo. So we get this. There's also a photo given to Misato of Ryoji Kaji, her son, and Shinji that they took at the research area. And while looking at this photo, she reflects on the fact that she cheered Shinji on to defeat Zerial and start the third impact. I believe she's upset with herself and the fact that she couldn't do it herself, and that that Shinji had to do it instead. But while she's reflecting on this moment, we also see a very brief moment of third impact that we never saw. And this is of Lilith standing upright with the gates of Guff above her decapitated head. It's raining skulls, and Ava Unit Mark 6 is standing in Lilith's neck cavity, holding out her decapitated head in its hand, outstretched, or stretched out. He's holding Lilith's head. So this is, I guess, the scene where Mark 6 stopped Lilith, attacked Lilith. It's sort of vague, but yes, raining skulls and decapitated Lilith, that Mark 6 is holding the decapitated head and standing in Lilith's neck cavity. And we also see Kaji saying goodbye to Misato and getting in a helicopter. And this is apparently the last time they saw each other, and Kaji sacrificed himself to help end third impact. From here, this final mission begins. The Wonder dives down onto a camouflage cocoon, and from here, the Erlosung also breaks out of the camouflage cocoon. Erlosung is the Dark Wonder that we see in the trailers, and Erlosung and Wonder begin a dogfight. Erlosung has huge firing capabilities that Wonder can't keep up with. Wonder's cannon blasts just sort of pepper the Erlosung and don't do any damage at all, whereas Erlosung's attacks are doing major damage. But during this dogfight, Wonder dives down into the camouflage cocoon, where we see a sea of failures of infinities. And wow, I'm really sorry about this weed whacker outside. I really hope you can't hear that too loudly. So then they're commencing this dogfight in the Sea of Failures of Infinities, and Wonder does a great maneuver where it sort of tricks the Erlesung and smashes it head on and does a flip and bats it away. So they buy themselves a little bit of time, and they continue on towards Nerve headquarters, which is their main objective. The top of Nerve headquarters, which is that little sort of inverted pyramid that we see in Q. So they finally are getting close to it while the Erlesung is chasing them from behind. It's in close range and is blasting them. But Wonder fires all of its battleships, the actual warships themselves, as missiles into Nerve headquarters, blowing it up and revealing Unit 13. From here, a ton of Evangelion Mark 7s burst out of Nerve headquarters. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands of them. It's not 100% made clear, at least from what I could gather, how they were all created or how they're piloted. It's kind of insane. But they're a white Evangelion type that has a skull for a head. Possibly the skulls from Central Dogma. I mean, the skull imagery, we don't see it in very many other places. But from here, they launch Evangelion 2 in all of its new armor, the JA02 body assembly cannibalized unit, the O2 Alpha, and also Evangelion Type 8 with its new arms, the Y model, something along those lines. And this is a really awesome action sequence. Unit 2 is blasting all of these missiles. The Mark 7s are flying all over the place, trying to grab onto Unit 2 and grab onto Unit 8. It's when they grab onto Unit 2, they're like, these skulls are like biting, like it's trying to like bite Unit 2. It's very intense. But she smacks them off with the big machine gun that we see, and she's blasting them with the machine gun, smacking them with the machine gun while they're making their way to Nerve headquarters. And eventually, she breaks the machine gun, or the machine gun runs out of ammo. She has to throw it away, and the big sort of there's a giant appendage that is attached to Mark 8 when they descend, and it turns out each of these 3 big capsules have different weapons in them. So then the next thing is she throws these giant knives, these bladed weapons, to Unit 2, and Unit 2 proceeds to cut up multiple Mark 7s and slash through them. She has to throw those away at some point. She asks for the next weapon, which is a giant sort of spinning, I mean, I don't know if you played Bloodborne. It's like the Whirligig saw, but like it's a double-edged sort of rotating saw blade that she cuts through Mark 7s with. And this is just awesome. Like, there's so many units that they're trying to break through. They're killing a very small percentage of this fleet of Mark 7s, but they're slowly progressing closer and closer. And then there's what appears to be a giant sort of, I guess it's from thousands of Mark 7s all combining into a giant mass, a huge drill that comes up towards Unit 2 and 8 as they're descending. And O2 launches a bunch of missiles at this giant drill. It does nothing. But then Unit 8 and Unit 2 go side by side and reach out with their hands together and create a giant AT field that becomes a sort of like AT field drill that they use together and break through this giant white drill. So then they land and descend into Nerve headquarters, where then they're attacked by these crazy spinning. It's like 2 arms of Unit 1 or Unit 13. 2 arms attached together with a pylon coming out of each end that spin, that have knives in their hands. It's maybe a very crude way of describing them. but honestly, what they're spinning on their sides, and they kind of almost look like swastikas a little bit. Like it's two arms facing out in opposite directions, holding knives, and then two pylons facing out in opposite directions as well. And I don't know if the imagery is intentional, but it's a very, very bizarre sort of unit. I mean, it's not even a unit. It might be a unit. I don't know. This thing isn't given a name, but it's these strange, like, rotating, spinning arms with knives that are chasing down Unit 2 and Unit 8. And Unit 2 is mainly just running for its life and throwing away parts of its equipment that explode to destroy and distract some of those units, while Unit 8 fights them with a sort of whip-like weapon. But Unit 2 breaks free and lands in the Central Nerve Headquarters, which now appears as sort of like the old version of Central Dogma, even though this isn't Central Dogma any longer. And we see Unit 13 on a giant crucifix. And this is their goal, to destroy Unit 2 and end this. So, destroy Unit 13, sorry. So Unit 2 approaches and has a giant sort of white cross-shaped weapon that she can pierce the core with and destroy it for good. So she goes to destroy Unit 13, but Unit 13 now has its own AT field. And it shouldn't have an AT field, as we saw in Q. So Asuka's very surprised by this, and I think she exclaims that it must be like the will of Unit 13, or it's somehow able to create its own AT field. It's a bit mysterious at this point. But she can't break through no matter what she does, so she rips off her eye patch and digs into her eye and pulls out a miniature cylindrical black and red purifying seal that we have seen now. And she pulls it out of her eye. Supposedly she was turned into an angel during Ha, and she either died in Ha. Okay, I'm not gonna I can't get into this exactly, but she was either corrupted then, or this could potentially be a new Asuka. I'm not 100% sure, but she is infected as an angel, and this is keeping her in check. So she rips this out, throws it away, and then begins this sort of transformation. She activates this thing on Unit 2 that injects it with these 3 needles, this sort of blue substance, and she turns into a giant Evangelion angel form that is giant. It's insanely powerful looking. It has multiple arms, and it has this giant, huge sort of cross energy light sword. So she uses her 2 arms to rip open Unit 13's AT field, and then she's going to stab it with this giant white energy beam sword. But then as soon as she's about to, Unit 13 awakens. It launches a blast from its head, which destroys its Unit 2's arms and sword and hits it in the head, doing severe damage, and Asuka's screaming. Unit 13 immediately just easily fits its hand through the cuffs of the crucifix that it's on like it's nothing, and activates and stands up and grabs Unit 2 by the neck and is choking it. Mari is extremely worried about Asuka and screaming her name. We then see an Asuka appear in front of Asuka in the cockpit. Our Asuka refers to this as the Shikinami series. Interesting. This Asuka also in this sequence sprouts wings, pink long wings that are the same as the ones that our Asuka gains when she's piloting Unit 4 in Ha before she gets infected. This Shikinami series puts her hands by Asuka's face and pulls her out of the suit that she's wearing and the Evangelion, and sort of reverts her to like a liquid and pulls her out. Then the DSS choker activates and explodes, but she's already been taken out of the equation and is no longer there to be exploded. Then Unit 13 uses its other hand to rip into Unit 2 and rip out the entry plug. Then this giant angelic Unit 2 Evangelion bursts into LCL, just like Ray Q did. Then, back up on the deck, Gendo. Okay, I'm trying to make sure I have the right information here. Okay, Wonder is trying to now perform a new maneuver when it is pierced through its guns by Erbsunday, which is another Dark Wonder unit. Then we see another one, Gebet. So there are 3 Dark Wonder units along with Wonder. So there are 4 of these total ones. And what do you know? There's Mark 9, which is the master of the Wonder, the original master, as said in Q. And we also have Mark 10, 11, and 12. So it seems as though these Mark units also have these Wonder units attached to them. And these 3 now units, they have sort of defeated Wonder for the time being and descend into this sort of ritualistic area where those 5 crosses were, and they extend wings of light like second impact from themselves. Gendo descends onto the deck of Wonder where Misato and Ritsuko confront him. Ritsuko shoots him in the face a bunch of times. His brains come out. He picks up part of his brain matter, puts it back in his head, and he has a giant cross and is hollow where his eyes used to be. And it's revealed that he used the key of Nebuchadnezzar on himself and has become a sort of godlike being. So he brings forth Unit 13, which now has Unit 2's entry plug in its mouth. It bites that down and then begins glowing white, like its pseudo-evolved form from Q, and also gains the like seraphim sort of seals behind it, like Giant Lilith does in End of Evangelion when the mass-produced units form that formation. Then he looks at the area of Wonder where they are keeping Unit 1, and through his hollow cross sort of face, blasts that, freeing Unit 1 and Unit 1 sort of just, he can like bring it to him with his new power. And then Unit 1 is placed into Unit 13's arms. And they sort of, Gendo climbs into Unit 13's mouth. It closes its mouth, and it falls backwards down into the center of the spiral of guff, which has been created with Gendo and Unit 1 in its arms. Shinji appears, says he's going to go into battle. He wants to help. At this point, Midori and Sakura appear. They're extremely upset. Their families died in Third Impact, and they're still upset, obviously, and they don't want Shinji to fight. They're threatening them at gunpoint, and Sakura goes to shoot, but Misato takes the bullet for Shinji, and there's reconciliation. Sakura wraps up Misato and tries to heal her. Misato forgives Shinji and goes then I think just before this, Mark 9 appears on the Wonder and infects the Wonder like it does in Q with its blue goo, and takes it over. And this is what completes opening the gates of Guff. Now they have the Wonder, Erlosung, Erbsunday, and Gebet all forming wings of light. And this is what allowed Gendo to go into the gates of Guff. But at this point, Mario shows up in Unit 8, slamming into the Mark 9 and biting off the Mark 9's neck and head. I also forgot to mention that when Unit 8 and Unit 2 were fighting in Nerve headquarters, those weird arm knife units exploded on Mari, and she lost both of her arms. So here, when she eats Evangelion Mark 9, she regrows one of her arms and becomes more powerful. So now they've given Shinji his plug suit. They agree that he should go and end this once and for all. So he climbs into Mari's unit, and Unit 8 now falls backwards into the gates of Guff as well, after Gendo. So they end up in this sort of strange dimension where Unit 13 is teleporting around, and Mari asks Shinji to try to save Asuka, and he says he will, and he'll see her again. And he walks through a portal and reaches Unit 1. So he is in Unit 1 and activates it, and Unit 1, which is just a torso at this point in Unit 13's arms, grabs Unit 13 by the neck, and Shinji gains a syncrate of infinity and regrows Unit 1's arms and legs. So at this point, Unit 13 and Unit 1 start flipping around in this dimension in the gates of Guff. They're flying around, and I know that I'm really sorry that I'm going so fast. I mean, I'm going slowly, I guess. This is a long video, but I'm sorry about all the information that I've possibly left out. But yeah, sorry. I'm just trying to summarize this as best I can. They're flying through the gates of Guff when they see the object that we see floating around in the gates of Guff that looks like sort of a cross with other crosses coming out of it in different directions. I think in fan work it's referred to as the GUFO, or the Gulf Unidentified Flying Object. Shinji asks what this is, and Gendo says that it is the Golgotha object. I guess Golgotha is the place. Golgotha? I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but it's the place where Jesus was crucified. So this cross in the gates of Guff is the Golgotha object. And as they're fighting, they smash into the Golgotha object, and as soon as they hit it, Shinji wakes up in his bed like we've seen in the previous films and in the TV series. Once he wakes up, he's then in the dock area, the bridge, I should say, where Unit 1 is stationed, and Gendo is standing up top with his new god form. Shinji grips his hand and gets into Unit 1, and it's the same animation of him activating and going up to fight Sachiel for the first time. Even when he reaches the top, it's nighttime, and it's the same animation of Unit 1 taking its first step. But after it takes its first step, it's then dusk, and we see Unit 13 waiting for him, and their battle begins. And this battle is actually using footage that we also saw in the preview. That is that really kind of wonky looking CG animation, but it is certainly intentional. It looks kind of wonky, and I don't know if it's rotoscoped or just sort of like bizarrely, jankily animated, but it's definitely intentional. And it's sort of meant to emulate like a tokusatsu sort of battle. The buildings are all sort of CG and get sent flying in bizarre ways as well. And during this battle, Unit 13 throws Unit 1 across the city, and he smashes into a sort of invisible wall that appears to be a curtain. So that's a little bit strange. It's almost as though this is like a set of sorts. And after this scene, the very next scene we see is of the inside of Misato's messy apartment, with Unit 13 and Unit 1 standing inside of it. Now the animation has switched to very nice, very stylized 2D animation, and they begin battling inside of Misato's apartment. They smash into each other. Some chairs and the table go flying. Then we immediately cut to inside of Shinji's school, and they're inside of the classroom facing to each other down. They smash into each other and clash again. Then Gendo knocks him through the wall of the classroom, and Unit 1 ends up in a sort of like the back area of like a set or like a stage area, and it's kind of bizarre looking. Then he gets up. You see multiple shots of Unit 1's mouth opening, of it reactivating. Then you see them fighting in the watermelon fields where Kaji talked to Shinji. They clash again. And then we get this really awesome sort of kaleidoscope looking animation with all sorts of crazy shit going on of Unit 13 and 1 fighting and skulls and some gore and some stuff, and Gendo angry face. And it said that this battle cannot be won through like physical means like this. And then the next area that they're fighting in is Village 3, and we see Unit 13 attack Unit 1, knocks him down again, and destroys some train tracks, and Shinji thinks of Kensuke and Toji and Rei, and this isn't really this area at this point. Oh, crap, I missed a very key moment. I'll get right back to this exact moment, but I'm gonna backtrack. When Gendo's standing on the bridge, he explains this fourth impact, this impact that they're currently causing. The second impact was to destroy the oceans. The third impact was to destroy the land. And the fourth impact was to destroy life, I believe. After this activates, thousands and thousands, millions of failures of infinity, purple ones, burst forth like a sort of like tidal wave across the earth, but gets stopped at Village 3 in the purified area by the barrier that they've set up. So it can't break forward and destroy humanity. It's being staved off. And so inside of the Gates of Guff dimension, we see this town, but it's not actually the town. This is just a sort of vision inside of Shinji's head. Oh boy. So getting back to that scene, after it's explained to Shinji that he can't win the fight through physical means, we then see Gendo taking Shinji down to Central Dogma. And in Central Dogma, we see Black Lilith. Black Lilith, I feel like Gendo might actually refer to it itself as imaginary. It's called imaginary. Again, I don't want to put out false information here, but there's Black Lilith. Gendo explains that through Black Lilith in this dimension within the Gates of Guff and Golgotha object, they combine the spears of Cassius and Longinus and create this new special spear that goes into Lilith and turns Lilith white, and through this ritual he can perform additional impact. So Lilith falls from the cross and additional impact begins, and additional impact is sort of like a new sort of version of third impact from End of Evangelion. So Lilith's mask starts to emerge from the Gates of Guff in the real world, and the mask falls away, and we see a giant, very freaky looking CG Ray face that looks very bizarre, but I also feel is intentional. There's a few things later on that seem to indicate that this weird CG look is intentional. During this additional impact, we see all of the failures of infinity wandering the land. All are, they all have these giant green light crosses appear on them, like the light crosses that purified the world in End of Evangelion. But this actually transforms the Failure of Infinity's bodies into ray bodies, which still do not have heads. And all of these ray bodies fly up into the air or are marching on the ground, and all form hands and form chains with their bodies and are flying around and doing all this crazy shit while the giant ray head is like rising up. During this scene, Mari actually confronts Fuyutsuki in the I'm not sure exactly where he's standing at this point. I guess he's standing in, or I guess he's probably still inside the Dark Wonder unit, right? The Erlesung. And she refers to him as Fuyutsuki Sensei and says how it's been so long since she's seen him. And after leaving him there, Fuyutsuki actually explodes into LCL, who is actually the only character in the entire film we see explode into LCL during this sequence. The only other one being Rei, which was due to completely different circumstances. So that's a little bizarre. After this, the Unit 8 fights Unit 10, the Mark 10, 11, and 12 on its own. It bites the head off of one. It extends a giant AT field angel-headed creature out of one of its hands that bites the head off of the other one. And then we don't actually see it kill the last one, but it's implied that it does, because afterwards we see the Mark 8 with multiple halos coming out of it, and it's extremely powerful. And at this point, it's sort of standing in a giant sort of sequence where we see a giant 2D ray body like we do in the End of Evangelion, where usually that would be holding the the life, all the red souls of the earth from the sacrifice circling around in a giant red sphere. But this time we have a decapitated still giant 2D Lilith body, and it's holding the giant 3D ray head in place of where the sphere of red souls is. So that's a little bizarre. And the sort of instrumentality of this film that's taking place after touching the Golgoth object is taking place inside of that giant CG ray head. That's where Gendo and Shinji are having their battle. So while this battle has now turned into Shinji trying to confront his father, but we now have a huge sort of expository scene of Gendo and getting all of his backstory and us making us sympathetic towards him. So we get him as a young person, and we learn from him that he only ever cared about two things in life. And the first was knowledge, and the second was piano. And these were two things that they're like sort of like absolutes and things that he can control. And eventually, he kind of rejected other people in his life. He rejected factors that he thought he had no control over and could hurt him. So through these scenes, we learn that he's very similar to Shinji and how he was. So the parallel is made there. Eventually, we're given a scene where we're during this introspective scene, it actually plays music from the Neon Genesis Evangelion television series. From the episode where Shinji is trapped inside of the giant spherical black and white angel. And it also mirrors a few other scenes, like when Shinji is saying like enemy, 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 enemy. There's a scene in this film where Gendo's going Yui, 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 and it's flashing a bunch of different things with that same music playing. And we get the same animation of crying child Shinji and Gendo's silhouette from the back walking away from him. So through this, we actually learned that Mari was an acquaintance of Yui and Gendo and introduced Gendo to Yui, which is bizarre. So she's like their generation. And I guess she was a pilot, an Evangelion pilot, who was then affected by the curse of Eva. So then she never aged past that point. So she might be a bit older than them, actually. I don't know if she's 14, but she's from their generation. So that was very strange. Also why she knows Fuyutsuki and refers to him as Fuyutsuki-sensei. As Gendo is leaving Shinji behind, he has a vision of Yui holding Shinji and remembers her, and actually turns back and runs back to child Shinji and kneels down and holds him. While all of this is going on, we actually learn outside of this world that there's a chance for them to actually affect this. The Wille crew and Misato, they can actually create a new type of spear with the Wonder. So they do the necessary preparations to create this spear, and everybody evacuates except for Misato. And Misato rams the Wonder. It attempts to be blocked by giant Lilith's hands, but with the help of Mari, they break through the hands and are slamming into giant CG Ray Head's eyeball, and eventually Misato sacrifices the ship, reflecting on her son and Shinji's photo, and remembering Kaji and remembering everything. Self-destructs the Wonder and manages to get this newly created spear through into this the instrumentality world, which Shinji now has in his possession. So with Gendo's sort of character reconciled and Shinji having this new spear, he now is back in the cockpit of Unit 1, holding a giant version of this spear, which transforms into a more, a form that can be used to be stabbed, because the original form is actually some very giant, weird, wonky looking thing. And Shinji's about to stab himself and sacrifice himself to put an end to all of this. But right as he is about to, he's actually, the spear that he's about to stab into himself is stopped by a hand. And it turns out to be Yui, and she pushes Shinji out of Unit 1. At first he thinks that it's Rei, but then realizes it's not, and that it's his mother, who is still wearing the same plug suit with the long sort of wings coming out of the back that we see in Q when she joins into Unit 1's core. So now Yui's there in Unit 1's place, and from behind, Unit 13 actually embraces Unit 1. And Unit 13 from behind Unit 1 is now holding the spear, and we actually see Gendo and Yui naked, embracing each other and smiling. And then Unit 13 and Unit 1 scream, and Unit 13 drives the new spear through Unit 1 and itself. And stabbing through it and itself, we then see it come out through the other side of 13 and stab through Unit 2, which flashes into all of the different forms that we've seen throughout the Rebuild films and is destroyed. Then we see it smash through Unit 4. Then we see it smash through all of the Nemesis series. We see it smash through the Wonder. We see it smash through Unit 6, the Mark 7. We actually don't see it smash through Unit 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, because Mari has already defeated those units and taken their powers into itself. But this is essentially all of the Evangelion being destroyed, and Shinji creating a new world without Evangelion. So each one is destroyed. We see it appear and get destroyed in a sequence. Then, after all these Evangelion are destroyed, the giant Rei CGI head explodes and all of the headless Rei bodies start falling from the sky and actually form into human beings and animals that were, I assume, to be transformed into the failures of infinity during third impact. And they are still white in color, but as they fall through the sky, we see them in a backdrop of clouds, and they regain their color, and people are literally raining out of the sky. From this sequence, we are shown a sequence of Asuka, who we see before joining in Ha. And it turns out that Asuka is also part of a clone series, the exact same as Rei. And all of the other Asuka Shikinami series seem to have been destroyed, except for 2. So we have the Asuka that we have in this film. We also seem to have another one, which could very well have been the core or the soul inside of Unit 13, potentially. This is speculation on my part. I can't confirm this, but we do see that Shikinami series that takes Asuka away when Unit 13 attacks Unit 2. So this is a possibility. I'm not 100% sure on this. But during this sequence, we see a sad Asuka as a child, who also saw Shinji as a child with Yui and Gendo, and she runs away into the forest and is really sad. Giant version of the doll that she has on her hands appears before her and sits down beside her and takes off her mask, and it is Kensuke. And she says that she had no parents in her life, no mother, no father, and she was looking for somebody to be able to pat her on the head. And it seems as though Kensuke has this role. So again, it's very much set up as though Kensuke is an important character to Asuka and they are paired together, but the actual full nature of this relationship isn't made 100% clear. During this sequence, we also see, actually it was just before this sequence, we see the beach sequence of End of Evangelion, and Asuka is laying on the ground, except she's wearing her plug suit, I believe, from Q, and it's in tatters. Shinji appears day before her and thanks Asuka for caring about him and says that he liked her as well. And Asuka blushes and turns away. But it seems as though there is sort of a mutual understanding that they have both liked each other at a point. But it's more of like a nice, like a farewell, if you will, in this new world that Shinji's creating. And when Asuka turns away, she's then face to face with Mari, which then leads to that sequence of Asuka back at the academy where there was where she was cloned and trained. From there, we have a sequence of Kaoru. We have Kaoru waking up on the moon sequence, where he then looks to both sides of that row of coffins. To one direction, the coffins are all open. To the other direction, it seems as though there could be infinite more coffins that are still closed. And it seems like he's been constantly doing this process to try and help and save Shinji. But Shinji then, as a child, reaches his hand out to Kaoru, standing in front of the atoms that became Mark 6 before it became Mark 6 that we see in Joe. And Kaoru reaches out and holds Shinji's hand. And it's like their farewell scene. It's like the new world that Shinji's creating now for Kaoru. And then we get a scene of Kaoru at Gendo's desk wearing Gendo's suit, and Kaji talking to him and setting him up as like the new commander, and Kaji refers to him as Nagisa, and Kaoru refers to Kaji as Ryoji. So they're on good terms. We see multiple scenes of them talking to each other in the watermelon fields. There's a scene in the red watermelon fields from Q where we have this shot of Kaoru just standing there by himself randomly. We have that exact same shot again, but this time Kaji is standing next to him. So this is implied to be part of this instrumentality, this new world that Shinji is creating for everybody that doesn't have Evangelion in it anymore. But at the same time, the fact that Kaji is paired with him, that during Misato's image of Third Impact, we see the Mark 6 that decapitated Lilith and Kaji going off into a helicopter to stop Third Impact. It almost gives me vibes that something with Kaoru and Kaji happened to stop Third Impact. Like they worked together in some way. But we're really not giving that much more information, unfortunately. So there's a lot to still be inferred there. From this sequence, we have Shinji on a beach with blue water. And before this, while Shinji's recreating this world, we see him sort of on a set where all of the Evangelion suits are hung up on racks, like costumes and the Wonder and all of these things are hung up sort of like props in this room. And he meets Rei, long-haired Rei, who, he also met inside of Unit 1 before he took it over. It's implied that Rei has been inside of Unit 1 since and she merged with the core. Her hair is really, really long, and it's shown that even those that have the Curse of Eva, their hair still does grow. So Rei's been inside of Unit 1 this entire time. But Rei and Shinji meet in this set while they're discussing how they can create this new world. The very fast sequence, a very quick sequence of events that is played from End of Evangelion is directly shown here. It goes through all of that. It goes through the episode titles. It goes through the episode titles for Jokyu Ha and Shin Evangelion. And after it ends, yes, they do say the words Neon Genesis. Rei says that they can create a Neon Genesis, which a lot of people I've seen say that it's a pretty cheesy line, and it's a little cheesy, but, Neon Genesis. It makes sense that is the thing that they are creating, this new life, this new world. So I thought it was, it was fun. It was kind of poetic. So after all of this, Shinji is sitting on the beach, and the animation begins to break down. This really is Evangelion reverting, going away. It starts off in color, everything's fine. Then it kind of cuts away to colorless animation. Then it cuts to storyboard. Then it cuts to stills. But then Mari appears in the Unit 8, and Shinji yells out to Mari, who jumps out of the Unit 8. And the second that Mari hits the water, all of the color returns again. And she looks up to Unit 8 and she says, "Thank you, Unit 8 plus Q plus Ju plus Zuichi plus Juni." So she's saying thank you plus thank you, the Mark 9, 10, 11, and 12 units for giving her the power to, help Misato and the Wonder create the power that could create this new world. So she thanks all the Evangelions, and Unit 8 spins around, and we see it reveal all of the forms that it's had throughout these films, and it disappears. And that with the combined powers of the Mark 9, 10, 11, and 12 are the final Evangelion to disappear. After this, we are at a train station where we see across the train platform, we see Rei and Kaoru standing there, and I'm almost 95% sure that we see Rei sitting at a bench off to the left of Rei and Kaoru. I can say this with just about 100% certainty. I saw people talking about it online, so I paid extra close attention to be looking for Asuka during that scene, and I swear you do see her sitting down at a bench to the left of Kaoru and Rei. And then a train appears very quickly in that scene and blocks them from view, so you don't have that much time to really analyze it. Your eyes are drawn to Rei and Kaoru, so it's easy to miss Asuka in that scene. Then we see an older Shinji sitting on a bench, and just like earlier, when Mari covered his eyes and asked, guess who it is. She does it to him again here, but Mari and Asuka are older, and Shinji's actually voice acted by a man this time, a new up and coming Seiya. So it's very weird to hear Shinji with a different voice. They have like a little flirt, Mari and Shinji. I swear, Shinji says that she's cute. He's wearing a DSS choker, but Mari removes the DSS choker from him and twirls it around her finger and places it in her pocket. And then Shinji stands up and says, "Let's go." One Last Kiss starts playing and they run up a staircase. And then the camera pans out and we see them run off. And they're now in the real world. It's live action footage of Tokyo. And the camera pans around while One Last Kiss plays, and it appears as though this is the new world that Shinji has created without Evangelion, without anything, and they can now move on. So, holy shit, I just talked for an hour straight trying to summarize everything I could remember from that film. I definitely left a ton out. I definitely left a ton of dialogue out, but I'm going to throw this out there. Hopefully anybody that's really interested in spoilers or finding out little bits of information that maybe other people haven't talked about, or maybe very small details in some of the action framing or something like that, maybe this was helpful to you, or you can maybe help visualize certain things a little bit better. And I hope that other people can see the film soon. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. I will try to answer them as best as I can, because I'm sure I left a lot of things out, and I'm sure there's a lot of specific things that people are curious about. But that's going to be it for this video. It's already a really long one. I hope you enjoyed the information, and see you guys around. Peace.